The special meeting of the Lone Star City Council called for February the 27th at 6 p.m. is being called to order at 6:02 p.m. We have citizens' comments. Anyone want to speak? Mr. Reader?
Keith Ryder, over in Dogwood. I want to remind this council that these are open meetings for a reason, and that all discussions on agenda items need to be in the open unless they are specifically interacting with the lawyers. If we, the citizens, are gonna have to pay for any lawsuits, then we need to know what's going on.
You would know, sir, following our discussion with the lawyer. If there's a discussion with he and pending legal action, there's a
If the lawyer's not
possibility. We
present.
don't discuss those things until we come out of session.
If the lawyer's not present, you have to discuss it in the open.
That is correct. But to that effect, council, strike 3-4 and 4-1 from your list tonight. He's going to seek legal counsel in the executive session, but albeit that he is not available, that will be moved to another meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I'd also ask we strike 3-1 for the same reason.
3-1
3-1.
and 3-4.
Well, y'all need to present to the council.
Huh?
Your last action is on that.
3-4, did you say?
Correct. And 4-1, we will not be going into executive session. And you want to strike 3-1?
No, we'll talk about 3-1. I don't have a problem doing that.
Okay. That being said, do you want to go forward with action on it tonight? Approval?
If council so approves, yes.
Okay. I'm going to make a few comments here. Anyone else have any citizens' comments, anything that you want to say? Every few days, I'll receive a call from someone throughout the city that will say, have you heard what's out there now? Who's publishing this? And they'll tell me. And I say, no, I have you blocked. I don't listen to it. But I'm going to make an exception tonight to address it in front of you, since you receive via the internet so many false narratives. I think the last one I was presented with today is berating council for rubber stamping. I find that comical. Any issue that comes up. This council, if you look at people around it, are entrepreneurs, people who work for the government in the highest places, who have the highest security clearance. The lady sitting to my left had high ratings of security clearance for the government. My career lasted approximately 50 years. I think 6 different companies and 9 different positions. The lady to my right, Ms. Mona Brown, spent her career in medicine, the medical field. And I would dare say that I probably work more hours than the man who puts these false narratives has even been awake. I'm somewhat thrilled that the phone numbers and email addresses of council are going out on our webpage.
We're done.
Or,
The web address is already done, the phone number, not. That was not part of what was presented.
okay. You can contact me at any time if you hear a narrative that has your self-righteous indignation blowing up, has you concerned, and I'll meet with you at a place of your discretion, and we can have the conversation. I will not have a phone on that records what you have to say. You can speak freely. If you wish, you can come to my home, and you're all welcome there. The Serenity issue is a false narrative. It's outside the city limits. That's why the $30.25 cost per 1,000 gallons was addressed by the Northeast Texas Water Board. We have a contract with them to look at tonight. For your information, the cost of your water in this city is $1.48 per 1,000 gallons. That's a far cry from the possibility of it being 3.25, as is stated in this narrative. They are outside of the city limits. We're still working on that issue, trying to make sure that we do it properly so that the city doesn't have any undue exposure, but that we take care of the Serenity subdivision properly as well. There are comments made that the mayor frequently has closed-door meetings with the city secretary. That is correct. There are things that we process and talk about in private. Come here, Jerry. I am also frequently briefed in closed-door sessions by the police for matters that don't need to be out in the street, ongoing investigations. I do not comment on them. I have met behind closed doors with Texas Rangers and one FBI agent. Those are closed-door sessions. You can interpret that any way you want to. When those gentlemen speak to me, I do not divulge what was said. It is stated that Mayor, County Judge, and City Secretary have been in closed-door meetings with county offices on this subject for months. I have been in a number of settings with the county judge where he called me, asked me to come and be present. We had a meeting last Friday with a congressional representative. There were key people from the county who were there. The gentleman that wrote this narrative was not there. These types of issues, and I have seen many of them throughout the 5 or 6 year period I've been the mayor. At that time, I saw narratives where I learned a great deal about me that I didn't know. Most of it has been somewhat comical. But again, and I've got a 1/2-inch binder full of this. If something comes to you that you have a question on, it makes you angry, please contact me. You may find that what you've been told is not true. Action item 3-1. Review, discussion, and possible actions for the EDC to present to the City Council for consideration of legal action against Lone Star Concrete Technologies for work performed on the City Park basketball court. Sir, in your description of this, would you please describe the work that was performed and the deficiency then?
Yes, sir. Actually, this process has been going on for a couple of years to get us to the point we're in now. Back in 2021, we had obtained bids for the rework of the basketball court at the city park as a part of our park project. And at that point in time, we decided that we were not going forward for that project because number one, we didn't have the funds, we didn't feel. Number two, we were in the process of trying to get a park grant. And number three, the timing just wasn't right. Subsequent to that, we were denied the park grant because the state of Texas did not feel like they wanted to expend the money or as much money as what was being asked to do the basketball court. So we came back and said, okay, if we remove that section out of stuff and try to get another park grant, then we have a good option of getting it. Well, we didn't get the second one, I don't know why. But we decided to do the park project, went through the whole process of the presentation to council, went through the 60-day waiting period. We put it out there and we told them that we were going to put it in phases as we went forward. The reason we did that was because once you do a project and start a project within the 60-day period of time, with prices being so volatile, and that was right at the end of COVID, we weren't guaranteed being able to sustain a price for over 60 days. So we presented the entire project and said we would break it up in segments, and each one of those segments, we would give bids on those segments and go forward. In 2021, Lone Star Concrete Technologies had been one of the companies that bid on the basketball court revitalization. And when we told them, we're gonna hold off, in 2022, we went back to them in the bid process and they said, yes, we want to rebid it. There were about 4 companies we tried to get to bid this project. One of them was Heartland, who was supposed to be doing, they had done some work for us before on the playground equipment, but they had bid on the fact that it was gonna be like $40,000, and we decided not to go with them. After we narrowed the bids down, we had invited Lone Star Concrete Technologies back in. They came and met with us, and we said, okay, change your bid, do whatever you want. And they told us at that point in time, we don't need to change anything, it's the same thing. And we said, okay, if you need to update your costs, whatever need to happen, do that. No, we're not updating, it's all the same. Cost was the same, total cost of $20,600 and something anyway. They wanted 50% upfront for parts and for materials and to cover part of their upfront cost. The balance of the $10,333 would be paid on satisfactory completion of the project. Being as how they were what could be termed as an underutilized business, and they were a minority-owned business, and they were they had bought some different things and we'd checked some references. It seemed to be a reputable, didn't have any issue with that. We awarded them the contract on that, the cost plus the fact that they were part female-owned, part minority business. Because we're, as I told the council, and we talked about it and everybody agreed with it, we're all into trying to help the people around this area and not go outside if we don't have to. We developed a contract for them to sign. They proposed a contract and we said, no, we're putting the contract together and you have to sign our contract. Okay, well, Mr. Garrett Williamson, who was one of the majority owners, met with us. He signed the contract, put it into place. They did not get the project done on time, number one. Number two, they came in and did the project on a Sunday and didn't let anybody know they were doing it. And number three, it was unsatisfactory. Upon their completion of the project, the next morning, I was notified by Tina that they had sent an invoice requesting the $10,333 final payment within 5 days, which was not in that contract. I called Mr. Williamson and had him meet me at the park, at the basketball court, and I outlined several things that were not in line with what the contract said. And at that point in time, he got very upset. He was like, I don't know why I got involved with this effing little town. I said, you know what, we're done. I don't want to talk to you about it anymore. But it hasn't been done properly and it needs to be done properly. Well,
What specifically wasn't done properly, sir?
we were promised a 1/8-inch overlay. They were supposed to come in and clean all the surface. The product they were going to use had an epoxy in it, and they promised us when they finished it, that it would have a light new finish on it, and that it would be durable as new concrete. That's what the contract said. Well, we have pictures that we took. I took them the day when I went up there, and in the days after that, the product that was put on there, and you can still see the old court. They didn't go all the way up to the edge of the court. There were spots on there where the coloration was so bad that there was no way it wasn't a finished product. There was no sheen to it per se as we were promised. And when I met with Mr. Williams and addressed those issues, he was like, "Oh well, no, this is it." I said, "Okay, fine, whatever you think, but it's not done right, and we're not paying you for it until it's done properly."
And you paid how much at that point?
At that point, we had paid $10,333 for materials up front and for them to start the project,
Okay.
50%.
Okay.
Subsequent to that, the EDC met and we said, you know what? We're not even going to entertain it to them until they get back to us and tell us what they're going to do. Well, Ms. Keener, who is part owner, supposedly majority owner, husband and wife team, got back with us and said, well, we want to know where our money is at. And I said, I've already addressed that with Mr. Williamson. We're not paying you till the job's done right. Well, it was done right. I said, no, ma'am, it was not. So she and I met for 2 hours one day, and I could tell during that conversation, I said, look, it's evident that you and I are going to agree to disagree. I don't know what our next step should be, but we're not getting anything resolved here. She met with us in the first meeting we had in December. She came in and met with the EDC, and at that point she told us, we are not willing to come back in and redo it. We will come back in and do repairs to it, patch it up, but we won't redo it. And we said, no, you don't understand. That's not adequate. There was a place on the court, we have pictures of it, to where it looked like a half moon shape that was a completely different coloration. And I addressed that issue with Mr. Williamson and with Ms. Keenan. And their response to me was, well, we were working on the court and some kid came up there and started bouncing a basketball on the court. And I said, why didn't you stop him? I mean, well, that wasn't in our contract. And I said, no, but your contract was a reasonable contractor would have tried to mitigate anybody getting on it while they were working on it, and they would have put up yellow tape or something to try to prevent people to get on it for the time period that was required for all that stuff to harden up and dry. Well, they didn't do that. And they said, no, that wasn't their job. In addition to that, the night they did the job on a Sunday, that night it came a rain, pretty good rain here. And they tried to blame it on the rain, washing the stuff off. And I said, well, that's not our problem. You were the one who came out and did it on a Sunday, which you shouldn't have done anyway, a fly-by-night job. And then the rain washed it off, and now you're trying to blame the rain on us, and we're not going to accept that. So back and forth we went, and she came in and met with us on December the 22nd. And we had a couple of people on the council that said, we don't want, everybody agreed, we don't want to touch it again. We just don't. Well, there were one or two individuals at that point in time who said, you know what, maybe we can give them an opportunity to come back and fix it. And she said, I'll send you a new contract. Well, the contract she sent us said they were going to be asking for more money for materials to come back in and redo it. And we said, oh, we're not going to do that. So somebody on the EDC made the suggestion. I don't even remember who it was at this point in time. It's probably in the minutes. Well, why don't let's just get rid of them, offer them $2,000 to walk away, and we can take care of it with the money that's left out of what we have left. We'll do something. So that was voted on at that point in time to offer them that. And I did. I sent them an email. It's in, I don't know if it's in this packet or not, but I know Tina, I believe it is, but when we sent it to them, if not, we have it. We sent it to them, we said, no, this is what we're doing. Well, the next thing we heard, we got a letter from an attorney. Now, let me tell you, it's not a lawsuit. There's never been a lawsuit mentioned, ever. I don't know where that misstatement come from, but it's incorrect. All they did was send a counter offer. And their counter offer was, oh no, we don't want 2,000, we want 6,000 to walk away. And at the last EDC meeting, we discussed it and we said, not only no, but we're not doing that. So, subsequent to that meeting, we decided that what we need to do is we need to approach our council, let them handle it from here off, and we're gonna go back and ask for the complete 10,333 we paid them up front because the job was inadequate. In their counter offer, they say breach of contract, and the thing about it is that we didn't breach the contract, they did. They didn't complete it. They didn't do what they said they were gonna do. And they, in our meeting in December, they actually admitted that. And in the letter they sent to us prior to these letters here, they actually admitted that they knew they didn't do a good job of it, they didn't do it right, but they weren't. When she came to visit with us, her deal was, well, you don't understand, we're a minority-owned business, we're a small business, we have 5 kids, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, that's not our problem. You signed to do the job and you didn't do the job of it. And we're not paying you additional money for materials. Because she said, well, we can come back and redo it, but if we do that, then you have to pay for extra materials. No, we're not gonna do that, because you messed it up. So they admitted they did it wrong. Everything they've admitted all the way through says they were wrong throughout the process. So I'm asking the council to vote to let's go turn it over to our attorney and let him take care of it from here, because I honestly believe we can recover the entire 10,333 with the condition that it's in right now. So,
I've seen the work they did, and
yes.
I'm amazed if we're $10,000 what the quality.
And I don't know how, well, I had an independent person come in, another contractor, and I said, I just want you to go do an evaluation and put down what your opinion it says, what you think they did wrong. And that email that I received is in there. And he came back and there were like 7 different things that they said that, number 1, it wasn't an inch thick. Number 2, the coloration wasn't right. Number 3, it looked like Walmart paint. It was just put on there. Another thing they didn't do is they didn't adequately clean up after the job. There was stuff all over the place. And when I addressed that with Mr. Williamson, he just kind of blew that off. Well, you know, we're not worried about that. Well, you should be. You signed the contract. So we have our contract. One of the things that it said is there was a star in the middle of our basketball court. I know this is a small thing, but we want that back. Oh, well, no, we didn't sign up to do that. I said, yes, ma'am, if you look at the contract, it says right in there, you'll do it. So when she looked at the contract, oh, well, I guess we can do that. So just too many things have gone wrong, and we believe that our attorney can recover the entire 10,333, and then once we get that, we can do what we need to do to take care of it and make sure it's done correctly.
So the Economic Development Board voted to go forward with the suit.
Well,
Legal action against them.
the EDC wants to turn the information over to our attorney and let him determine what the next steps would be.
Okay. Okay.
Can I make a question? The dollar amount's gonna be 10,330?
10,330,
And I think you
yes.
said an inch thick wall down. I think it's supposed to be an 1/8
Eighth of an inch.
He said that.
8 to an
originally,
inch.
and-
Okay, he did, but I just wanted to know.
So but at this point, there is no legal action whatsoever. We received a counter, and that's all we received, and we're not gonna honor that.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. Now, if the council says honor it, we'll honor it, but EDC doesn't want to honor it, we want to go get our 10,333 back if we can.
So in the meantime, you want to turn it over to legal, let them
That's
contact her
correct.
legal representative and see what kind of terms they come up with.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Was it stated at the EDC meeting that the letter from their attorney threatened a lawsuit?
I don't know, I wasn't at that meeting. If it was, that was incorrect. Because if you look at the letter that's in your packet from their attorney, there's no mention of a lawsuit whatsoever.
There's no letter.
There's no letter in there?
Okay.
I'd ask for it.
The only reason that hasn't been released to anyone is TML told me if we were pending, turn it over to our attorney to get them to look at it. Don't release anything until he tells us we can. So that's why it hasn't been released. But no, there is no threat of a lawsuit in it whatsoever.
And it was a letter or an email?
It was a letter, right here. It was sent as an attachment to an email.
And an official
And an
letter was
official letter
sent
was
in
sent, yes. We have all that.
From an attorney?
from an attorney.
Yes, from an attorney. And all that letter did was reject the $2,000 offer and counter with a $6,000 offer. No time frame, no nothing, that's it.
Do I hear a motion? Will we turn this issue over to the city attorney? For him to contact the adjoining attorney for the potential of some kind of agreement? I think that's kind of where we are. I'm not sure we can go any further. And that is also a request of the Economic Development Board.
What are the risks?
I'm sorry?
What are the risks associated with contacting our attorney? Other than his fee?
That's it, as far as I know. As far as TML told me, that's all there is.
Do we have any?
I mean, they could countersue, but my personal opinion is, and with all the documentation we looked at through the EDC, they don't have a leg to stand on because they've already admitted they didn't do a good job. They tried to blame it on all the outside circumstances like the rain. Well, the rain's why it didn't hold up. Well, then why did you do it? Well, there was less than a 10% chance of rain. That's not our problem. That is not our problem. You signed a contract. It's your responsibility to make sure that when you don't put it on, it's not gonna rain. I mean, it came like a half-inch rain that night. They put it on. They didn't let anybody know they were here to do it. You know,
Do we have an idea, a guess, or an estimate how much Stan is gonna charge for sending them a letter? Or if it goes into litigation?
no. But I would think that the amount is not enough for it to go anywhere but small claims court. Could be wrong. I don't think it'll go past there. But my opinion is, if we recover the 10,333 and we had to pay $5,000 to the lawyer, we gain $5,333 off of what we had lost in the first place. So that's personal opinion. That has nothing. EDC hasn't said that. That's my personal opinion. We shouldn't let them get away with our 10,333. That's what I'm telling you.
I think worst case scenario is we go to court. We spend $20,000 in legal fees. We win. They owe us $10,000. The judge awards, makes them pay our legal fees. They go bankrupt. We're out $30,000.
I don't think there's that much risk. I don't think there's a 30,000. I don't know where you're coming up with all your figures, but I don't think 30,000 is that's not even a reasonable figure, I don't think. Not for this.
I think if they fight it in court, $20,000 is a reasonable figure for our legal expenses. And the other $10,000 would be we don't get our $10,000 back even though we won. Because they're an LLC and they formed recently. We said this was their second job. With the amount of assets they have, they may just walk away from it.
I can't tell you what they're gonna do.
But they also insured
I'm not
for the
gonna.
job.
Okay.
They should be insured for the job.
They should have did, but they're gonna do it right.
So I suggest we make a motion to turn it over to the attorneys and let them go from there.
I second
You're making a motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
You're seconding it?
it, yes.
All in favor, say aye. Please hold up your hand.
Can I have a clarification? Is this a motion to sue them or is this a motion to hear
No,
back from
motion
the
to turn it
attorney?
over to the attorney so the attorney can look at it and see where we need to
And
go
tell
from
us
there.
something?
Correct.
Okay.
Again, hold up your hands if you're voting for. Unanimous. It passes. Review, discussion, possible action for the consideration to execute the LS subdivision contract for the Serene Development subdivision between the city of Lone Star and Municipal Texas Municipal Water District. You have a copy of that study, that agreement in your packet,
The contract.
contract.
The issue that I had with it, that I had mentioned, was that it says even if we were to annex them, let's say they wanted to be annexed and we wanted to annex them and they're part of the city, we would continue to have to charge, we would be charged by Northeast Texas Municipal Water District $3.25 per 1,000 gallons. As you mentioned, we're currently paying $1.48.
Correct.
the laws on this are long and complex. Can we charge a different rate to a different party inside the city limits? If not, then that 325 would have to raise the expenses for everyone.
Yes, sir, but your narrative says that that's what we're going to do, and that's
It's a
not the
possibility.
case.
That's the problem with this contract. The contract allows for that. Diana pays $2.30 to $2.70 for treated water.
That's what it costs the municipal water board to treat it, yes.
Yeah, but the contract is with Serenity, not the.
It's also outside the city limits,
Yes.
that's where the problem comes at. Within the city limits, we get a fee of $1.48 a thousand gallons. Outside the city limits, even as of now, there's a different rate that they get charged.
Correct, it's not with the citizens of Lone Star.
What rate are we charged for water that goes to US Steel? Which is,
You would have to take that up to the municipal water board, I have no clue.
which is also not in the city.
That is correct, they're not.
And so the cost of providing water to New Diana, for example, cannot be more than across the street. Because we used to provide water to Lakewood, the hospital in the Pines.
Doesn't you still do their own water?
No,
Yes, they would, yeah.
a long time ago.
Yeah, long time ago, contract done over 20-some years ago,
Um,
not relevant right
And when I asked Wayne Owen some questions, he said this was just a standard contract that their attorneys put out, open to revision. And when I made the points about Diana, for example, and I said, am I interpreting this correctly, that a non-member city could, in this contract, could be paying more for water from the water district? I'm sorry, a member city, Lone Star in this case, could be paying more for water from the water district, which we are the owners of essentially.
They can raise those rates anytime they choose. And those rates may rise in the future, who knows? When the chemicals they treat with become extraordinarily expensive, that may occur. That's gonna always be their contract.
But the contract
And
is
the
within the city
frustration I have with
limits.
this, what other option do you have? You gonna turn this down and start drilling wells?
We say this is too high. This
Who?
from the water district.
They
$1.48?
pay, no, the $1.48 is what the city,
I
the
understand
citizens of the
that.
city,
The 325.
they are
That is
paying
the water
over
district.
$2 and something a
Yes.
thousand gallons.
That is
to
what they are
produce it.
charging.
And we have to approve the contract with the water district, and if the contract is not good,
Well, and if we disclose, here's your options in my opinion, and I've been to some of the meetings and listened to what they had to say. You can do whatever you want to do. Your contract with the water district comes up next year in 2024. If you don't do that, I guarantee you, we'll be paying in the city limits 2 to 3 times what we're paying now. And not only that, but you probably won't be included in the 7-member district city, and then you have to go somewhere else.
it doesn't work that way. We were owners.
Then the water district's lying about it. And I
They
don't
are,
think would-
if that's what they said.
I don't think so.
In 1955, when we voted to fund the creation of Lake of the Pines and build Farrell's Dam, Marshall voted it down, Mount Pleasant voted it down, Gilmer voted it down. All the big towns voted it down. If everyone had voted for it, the small towns we would have had all the infrastructure and had to pay very little. As it is, because all the small towns voted it in, all the big towns voted it down, we had to pay a lot. As they say on their website, we only gave them $3 million, so we paid $3 million in interest. There's $6 million in property taxes, paid over a 25-year period. Just inflation, that'd be $66 million today. If we invested that in T-bonds or the S&P 500, we'd be sitting on $1 billion for 14,000 people.
But we're not in 1955.
Right.
We're
The
sitting
point
in
is, we own it.
2023.
And so we're essentially the Indians who sold Manhattan for beads if we want to just sign off for this. We need to at least go back with a counteroffer of a lower amount. We cannot pay more for water as a member city than Diana or Tryon Road.
You're not, you're at $1.48.
We may decide that it's in our interest, and Serenity may decide it's in their interest to annex.
Okay?
Right? And so this contract, originally, the January meeting, it said, and all the members of the board said, well, if we annex it, it's Lone Star. You know, they get the same rate as anything in Lone Star. We sell water to Longview. In that time, Longview is annexed lots of areas. Lots of towns have annexed lots of areas. Lone Star is Lone Star. This is a really bad deal. 41% higher for water for going across the road. So the expense of providing water across the road, where we provided to Hospital in the Pines, to where we already provide down the road. So the expense is not greater than the expense of providing it to Lone Star. Whereas Diana, $2.30 to $2.70 sold to them, treated water. 41% higher for us than Diana. You've heard the rumor. You've heard the rumor that I wanted to dissolve the city, and that's true. That's a true rumor. That's not just a rumor. And
It is true.
the strong, yeah, that's why I just said it's true.
And how do you think anything's gonna get done if there's no city?
My
There's no
point
fire
is,
department,
my
there's no
point is,
police
I'm getting
department,
to.
There's no public works department.
They have a police department in Jenkins. They have Black County Water in Jenkins. That's not my point. My point is,
By county water in Jenkins is higher than what we pay, higher than
right,
325.
right. My point is, the best argument that I've come up with why we do want to have the city is our membership in the Northeast Texas Municipal Water District. But we have to realize the return on our investment. And this is bad. This is not a return on our investment. This is them throwing it out there as a starting point, saying, let's see what we can
So
get by
you're
with.
suggesting a counter offer?
Yes. And I'm suggesting that we haven't had time. This is a big, big deal. This needs a lot of time to look at least more than a couple of days for the city council that has to make this decision.
What would be your counter offer?
I'm not sure. I would want to look at New Diana. I would want to look at Tryon Road.
Not Diana.
Exactly. We paid to build Farrell's Dam. They didn't. We'd be sitting on $72,000 for every man, woman, and child in the member cities if we hadn't funded it. We elected to, literally.
I'm not exactly sure on the dollar amount, but if I remember correctly, according to what we were told in a meeting, they paid $2.48 per 1,000 gallons to produce the water with all the chlorination and all the chemicals that they put in it.
That is correct.
We as a city are paying $1.48, so we as a city are getting it less than what they can produce it and give us clean water for.
It's our water. They're not giving it to us.
What?
It's not our water. They supply us water from the lake, Lake of the Pines.
And they process.
The reason why
Ship
the
it to
price
us.
is going to be higher because Serenia is outside the city limits. They made the agreement with the city and properties within the city limits to the citizens within the city limits, not anybody outside the city limits, is what the agreement is. That's why they are saying that they have to charge more on it, because they cannot give it to outside the city limits for the same rate that we get it at. It's
Right.
$1.48, because they were not part of the original agreement within the city limits.
Neither was Diana.
Right. That's the whole point. That's the whole
They
point.
charged Diana.
Furthermore, this is not just the city. This is a certificated service, whatever. We're obligated to provide water and sewer across the street from Serenity. We're obligated to provide water and sewer to U.S. Steel, even though they're not in the city. There are overlapping jurisdictions here of where we're obligated to provide water and sewer currently versus the city. But if we annex it, it is in the city. And so that's a huge problem with the contract. You go back and you say, if we annex it, it is the city rate, period. I don't want to annex it. I think it's a bad idea. But this is offensive to say that if it is in the city, then we're going to be paying $3.25 for water going in the city. Because it says, and when I went to the water district meeting, they said it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it will be annexed. And I thought, well, this is news to me. Right.
It's news to the
Right.
Yes.
And this was the discussion of the water district.
And I told you in the last meeting why that idea hadn't been entertained, because in the beginning of this, we had asked for an engineering study on what the water use is gonna be, so we could calculate if we could handle the load. And there were some issues that Mr. Ansley was having to deal with, and it put us back farther than we would have liked. That
Mhm.
was beyond it. The city's control, okay?
I believe that this amount, even if it is outside the city, is not acceptable. And the idea that if it were to be part of the city, that we would still have to charge this higher amount is also unacceptable.
When you were at that water board meeting this morning, which
Mhm.
you were, did you discuss this with them?
It was not on their agenda.
Okay,
The thing I was shocked by when I went there, because I looked at their agenda and it seemed pretty non-controversial, is they voted to spend $36,000 a year to join a lobbying group where they're the only rural member. Everyone else there is Dallas, Houston, or Austin. And it was and the point is, you go out there and you attend these meetings and you start to study it. They're representing wanting more money in the Northeast Texas Municipal Water District. It is governed by 7 representatives from the 7 member cities who funded it at a great expense for 12,000 to 14,000 people in the member cities. And we need representation that works towards us lowering our operating costs, not towards increasing the revenues in the Northeast Texas Municipal Water District.
We have 2 representatives from this city who do sit on that board.
Yes, Dangerfield's Representative Homestead's in Lone Star. But that does not make him a Lone Star representative. Is that who you're referring to?
I'm talking about Stan Wyatt.
That's Dangerfield's representative. He's not our representative. Each city gets 1 representative. If any city that voted.
So we have Sandy on there. She's the one that issues the reports to you every month.
If any
She
city.
is our representative,
Uh-huh.
okay? She's the one we depend on for this. But it's still a council, they still have the discussion, and they still vote accordingly. And the vote of the council rules.
And that's our representative, and we're not getting good representation at this point.
In your opinion.
Okay. I think the water bills are too high, and I think our representation at the Northeast Texas Municipal Water District is one of the reasons. And this contract is a huge deal. It involves hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
The city council, 3 of us, will have to decide about this contract, one way or the other. And it needs further consideration.
And what are you willing to counter back with? You seem to be on this.
Like I said, I would want to really look at Tryon Road, Diana. I asked him how much they're selling. The other calculations are more complicated because they're selling raw water. There's the cost of treating it. But Diana and Tryon Road are easy to compare and make logical comparisons to.
But your rejection of this is because you're looking down the road for us to annex this, correct?
Just the fact that the contract said, I would prefer that it never be annexed.
Well, it says in the contract that regardless, the terms of this contract will be upheld regardless of what annexation or not.
Right, it says that, in January they discussed it and they all said that, well, if it gets annexed, it's Lone Star, it gets the Lone Star rate, which to me it makes sense legally.
It
Right.
didn't say annexation?
That's not what the contract says here, but that's what they were saying in December.
Yeah, okay.
And then they met in closed session and for somehow
Right here.
came up with this contract, which doesn't say that. Okay? And he said this was
I mean, if you, in the negotiating for it, I mean, I understand that's fine. I mean, it's a contract. But what you just said, it states right here in this contract.
It says if they're annexed, it will be within this, which would mean it would be within the city of Lone Star, equivalent to anywhere else in Lone Star, and that we would pay $3.25 per 1,000 gallons instead of $1.48.
That area that's annexed,
Uh-huh.
per terms of the contract.
Excuse me?
Per terms of the contract, it didn't say it will affect the city of Lone Star, it's just the annexion.
Right, but can we say 100% that we can charge a different rate to one part of the city and a different rate to another part of the city?
You're making contracts with different parts or people for different stuff. You got different contracts everywhere.
There are serious regulations involving any of this stuff. Hundreds of pages.
Yes, you may.
So, there is law regarding it. I actually have a law, and I have a few items regarding the contract. So Walt, before he left, I had a conversation with him last August. He stated flat out, the city cannot charge more than the cost of the operating expense, the cost for the piping or repairs, and the small water. And you cannot treat one different than the other inside the city limits. And he said even outside city limits, that's to be treated the same. You can't treat treat people different than other people. That's state law.
So the contract we make outside the city limits at this point in time, if they choose to annex them 10 years from here. Per contract.
This is law, what's pushing on this.
Per contract violation is law. And that's based on, I looked up the water code today before this meeting. That's section 13 of the water code, state of Texas. That you must treat others individually. The only way you can offset costs or additional costs is if there's additional repair costs to service it. This does have additional costs because of having reports on a monthly basis. I'm not disputing the cost, but also I want protection of Serenity so that the city can continue providing water years down the road. Annexation, not, frankly, I don't care about 325. Annex, not annex.
Yeah, I understand.
But there's terms in this agreement that contradict itself, that do need to get resolved with the water district. This contract is actually with the water district in the city, not Serenity. And so I have no authority to go to the water district and negotiate it. Question for you, 1982 contract that they reference that says this will expire at the same time as that contract. Is that next year that you're referring to?
Contract
Yes.
next year.
So this is only valid for 1 year.
2024 is when the water districts has to renew its contract with all 7 member cities.
Okay. So this contract is actually only valid for 1 year, but it states it's valid for the term that was signed in 82. So, for one, that's not acceptable for a 1 year agreement to build multi-million-dollar development for a contract that's only valid for 1 year, not to be guaranteed to go past that 1 year. It should state whatever the term with the water district is with the city, it will stay in effect, not based on the 82 term that's in place.
This morning, they discussed the terms of the 82 contract with, I think it was Avenger and some other city that had expired a year ago, but that had an automatically extending clause or something because of outstanding debt or something like that. So it's not even that simple of a matter whether the 82 contract ends next year.
And it says it will expire at the end of the 82 contract or terminated the year provided. So this agreement's only valid until next year. So it should state until the city water agreement finally terminates, whatever that might be. Because next year you'll extend it, maybe for 20, 30 years, whatever it might be. This should be extended with it. I had noted earlier today about the annexation because of state law. And when I had a conversation with him last year, he's the one that told me about the state law. And he
He, Paul,
what's the way? Who was the?
Walt Sievers.
Walt. Conversation with Walt. Because the reason he brought the conversation to me is because I was trying to get a cost from the city of what my rate would be for Serenity. And he said, well, he tried to educate me with the conversation and said, they cannot treat you differently than others outside the city. It has to be the same rate for all states. And he mentioned the law, and I did not look it up at the time, but I did look at this part. Obviously, I'm glad to send a bill to link to.
He told us different.
If that is the case, that we could not charge a different rate to different customers inside the city, then this would tie our hands as far as annexation. It would, honestly, even though it says this does not modify the 1982 contract, it would modify the 1982 contract because it would have to change the expenses for everyone in Lone Star. Because everyone in Lone Star would include the part that would be annexed. And so the other people would have to make up the difference.
He did say you
Charge the
charge
same rate.
additional, for like us, we're outside the city, it's not part of the city paying property tax. So if the city was paying for the infrastructure and so forth, it could be the cost of the water plus the infrastructure, plus the management of it, plus a small margin that you make on everybody else, and that should be the rate. And that's what started the conversation last year of what would our rate be? And is it going to be the exact same margins as what the city has, which is right now you're buying $1.48, selling for $5. That puts your operating margin at $3.52 per 1,000 gallons. For us, it would be $3.25. The rate that the city quoted was $10. That would be a margin of $6.75. And at the time, okay, I understand that because of the engineering factors being outside the city and having to dump water, you have to make up that cost.
Correct.
I understand that aspect of it. That, I'm not even arguing. Yes, it's 92% higher than the margin you make in the city. That's fine. I'm wanting to protect the new homeowners, could be one of you, hopefully, out there in Serenity, to make sure that you have water for years to come. And the contract doesn't expire next year, and they just say, well, it expired with your fee too, we're done. And we're left high and dry, literally dry. So I want to make sure we're protected. The
Is that where the
citizens-
30-year guarantee for water came from?
No, so if you don't mind, I'm sure, just like you mentioned, there's a lot of rumors flying around. I'd like to get you up to speed on the last year. Fill you in on the narrative. So the city signed off November 21 to provide water to Serenity. The following day, I actually bought all the materials because I needed it. And the cost of inflation, pipe was going up dramatically, doubled in less than 6 months. All that was purchased the following day, I believe it was 19th. We started construction February on the roads, water, May. Actually, we need a date. Come May, I received a call from the judge, Judge Reader. He says, Dusty, I apologize, but we just found a document that we didn't know existed. And we're gonna ask you, please, stop work, let's get these items resolved. We think we can work with you and get this resolved in the next 30, 45 days, and get back on track. I agree, okay, let's stop and let's get this resolved. One piece of that was part of the county requirements for subdivisions that was signed in 2014 required that you have a 30-year agreement with the city to make sure that when you build a subdivision, you're gonna be able to provide water to the homeowners. Reasonable, you don't wanna say, let's build $1 million house, but you only got water for, I don't know how long. So that's when I reached out to the city, and then I believe you reached out to Northeast Texas Municipal Water District.
Correct.
And then Walt at the time called me, and this was early June, and said, Dusty, I want to make you aware, the city has no authority to sell you water. I'm like, what are we talking about? I'm 85% completed with water and the entire development. And now you're telling me they don't have authority to sell water. He said, we're willing to do it. And his words is, we feel like the city is not competent, so we're not gonna approve it until we know that they're competent to provide the water. I said, okay, what does that mean? He said, you need to talk to the city. So we talked to the city. I think at the time they were telling you, we want you to verify that you can provide water.
We have made our calculations on what the lines flow, yes. And that's why we gave you a verbal, that we could do that, and the engineering study bore that out.
From the very beginning.
Yep, so, and, yes, contracted KSA, they did some work. And then last year, well, can you repeat that? What did you just say? From the very beginning?
I said, we gave you a verbal in a meeting in this room, having made the calculations on what our capacity was, that we could supply that water, but we also required an engineering study, as did the water district.
In the meeting in November, engineering study was not required. There was no mention of engineering study. It was
The water board came back with that
Yes, water
requirement
board
as well.
came back in June. It wasn't required of the city, so we proceeded with construction, 85% completed.
Shane mentioned that in one of the early meetings, that we had to have an engineering study. Because he had encountered a similar situation in another place where he worked at before.
But go ahead and go forward.
So, the city tried to work it out. My understanding, there was a pause, about a month and a half. I reached out again, didn't seem to be getting anywhere, so that's when I called a meeting with the water district judge. Let's just figure that out. Get everybody in the room.
When we met at the courthouse that day. Yes.
At that time, Walt recommended that the city hire KSA to do that study. I reimburse, not a problem. Tina spoke with KSA the next day. KSA said they cannot do the work for the city because multiple different reasons.
They could not do it for you.
For-
It had to be the city that did it, not you. Because you had said something about me getting contact to see if they could do it for you. And they told me no, that they couldn't do it for you, but as a subcontractor, that they could do it for the city, that the city would have to do it. And that's where Northeast Texas said, we'll go through them. And then you could pay them for the money of the survey or the
So
study.
they wanted you to do it. I went back and looked at the detailed notes. He stated that they could not provide it, and that it was over $30,000 that could put out for bid. So I called Walt and said, Walt, what do I do now? The city's not able to contract with KSA for me to reimburse them. He said, it's not true, it's professional services, you don't have to do bids, I'll just do it. I'll hire them, you can reimburse me. I sent a check for $10,000, paid the engineering, study was performed, completed on November the 15th, study completed, approved. Walt called me and said it's approved. We'll send it over to the city, and now it's been 3.5 months. And I'm just waiting for agreement. And today was the first time I've seen a water agreement for the city. And we need to resolve that. That needs to get resolved to make sure that's solid for the city, for Serenity, and then get Serenity agreement that's solid for those homeowners 4 years ago.
One of the issues, your request, something the judge put out there too, and I had a conversation with him about this, was a 30-year guarantee for water. It's almost irrelevant that be in the contract for a couple of reasons. Force majeure added to the contract would nullify that 30-year guarantee if something occurred. And the city has not signed a 30-year guarantee with any property owners. We sign a contract with you that we will supply you with water, you pay us for it, and it continues. There's no 30-year guarantee, there's no 30-year limitation on it. Who in the world would want to buy an expensive home knowing that in 30 years, there's no guarantee of water?
Yeah, it's a minimum of 30 years. Of course, there's ways of canceling it. It's a 30-year agreement, just like 1982 agreement.
Force majeure could
30 years.
cancel it at any moment, so it would be almost irrelevant, and that's the same thing that the municipal water board put in their contract with us as well. There are a number of things that can change that. Look on the 6th page, Cody.
And that's correct. If either party becomes unable, and that's any decent legal agreement. And that does.
Our city attorney said he's never seen that put in place. Working in the large cities he works in, where you have constant situations where land becomes raw land becomes residential areas and they're grafted into the city, he said, in no case have I ever seen a guarantee of X years of water. It's as long as you pay your bill and you have a contract with the city, and that's indefinite.
Correct. And I think that's what,
And that's one of the holdups right now in getting this thing through.
and I think if that was in there, that as long as there is service that you can provide, then it's gonna be in place. Then it's indefinite. It's not 30 years, it's not 10 years, it's not a year. It's, as long as you can provide the services that, as long as you can provide water and provide the services, the water's available. I think that's what the
And that's
county.
the practice in any city.
Exactly. But that needs to be put in place. I haven't seen, we're talking about agreement, I haven't seen, so.
Mr. Reed, you were trying to talk, sir.
In this contract, where basically the water district wants, now, we need to separate what the developer pays for the water, or those new homeowners pay for it, and what we, the city, are paying for it. This contract is what we as a city pay for it. It's not what the customer pays for it. So any agreement you have, the city has with Serenity will change if they get annexed. That we can't charge them more for water if they annex, but this contract is not about what they pay, it's what we pay. So if we contract paying double the amount for their water, and then we annex them, we still have to pay double for their water, but they don't, because they're now annexed and we can't treat them different. So what that's gonna mean is, what Cody said, we'll have to raise everybody's water rates to cover the difference now, because we'll have to subsidize their water because we have to pay twice the amount for theirs, and now we can't charge them anymore. That's the problem with this contract. In my opinion, at most, they pay Diana rates unless they're annexed, and then they're just part of the city and they get to 148 like everybody else in the city. If we agree to any more contract than that, you're just giving the shaft to the taxpayers.
It is never our intent to ever expose our taxpayers anything but the best service for the best price that we can get.
This contract would lead us down the road to paying much higher rates for everybody that's currently in the city limits.
The contract at least makes that possible, and it's very complicated,
And very likely.
and it should not be done by the city council with a very small amount of time to look at it. I would like to see it on the next regular agenda, when I, for one, have had more time to not only compare it to Diana and Tryon Road, but other comparisons.
Council, what's your decision? You want to table it, put it on the next agenda? Look at this closer, or do you want to go forward?
Let me add two more pieces to it if you don't mind. 10D, for example, 10D states that if their water cost is more than what the contract states, they can cancel. Which,
Inflation
inflation,
termination, is that what you're looking at?
and with inflation, that's possible in a couple of years. We don't want this to cancel. But, you know, if you look at section 6, it states that they have the right, if prices increase, to increase the price.
Yes.
The termination should be removed from that and just leave it at, they have the ability to increase the price, not terminate it if the cost becomes more than they can charge. Because you want to protect the citizens, or even if it's outside the city, to be able to provide water still, even if their cost is above the 325 of the grant agreement. And it kind of contradicts itself, so to keep raising rates, but you don't want to give them out, just to say, we want out because cost is now more than 325, that's what the contract is, but we don't want to raise the rates. So there's a contradictory there.
I'd be curious to know if the same kind of agreement went to Dangerfield or some of the other municipalities.
Yeah.
There's always going to be, in every contract, there's going to be notice of terminations, first part you read, disclaimers, exceptions. I don't think you're ever going to be able to get them because they can't read the future any better than you can.
Exactly, and that's absolutely fine, but it's, you don't allow them to get out if the rate, if their cost is increased beyond that 325. You wanna allow them to increase it, of course, that's reality, but not cancel just because they don't wanna increase the rate. And before you discuss this, the water contract is the main item. All the other items I had to resolve for the county were easy. They're simple, easy, they're all resolved. This is the last item. This is detrimental to the development. Right now, just gotta give you an idea. There's over $6,000 a month in interest payments alone. So every single month, every single day is $300 or $6,000 a month, plus opportunity costs. The liability in this project is increasing dramatically, rapidly. When you do the math, it's roughly 10% of the entire project right now, of the revenue. So it's adding up rapidly, and we're 3.5 months after the water study, and still have nothing.
And we're waiting
No
on,
drafts for Serenity, nothing, 3.5 months later.
again, our legal defense, or legal resource had an issue with the 30-year guarantee.
But that should be maybe 5 days worth of back. This is dragging on and dragging on and dragging on.
Yeah, I don't like it any more than you do, and I've, I've responded back to you several occasions that we're waiting on legal to get through, we're waiting on the water study to get back with us, and they were supposed to give us a letter. This letter didn't come to us as soon as it was written. It kind of fell through the cracks on their side. So that's part of the delay. It's unfortunate. I don't like it any better than you do. I think it's a great boon for the county. Business begets more business. We want to go forward with it, but we've had questions about this from day one. Sir, you wanted to speak, Mr. McCoy.
I am Commissioner Precinct 2, Morris County. I'm not aware of any legal issue being cleared with Morris County. I'm the one that's got to sign off on all the roads, the cul-de-sacs, and I haven't been approached other than the judge told me we would do waivers. I'm not signing waivers because you can't get fire trucks, ambulances in there. You can't turn a 4-door pickup around on the cul-de-sacs now. And also, I've got an email here, and I'll read it if y'all would like. The water lines that he laid in a county ditch are gonna have to be moved over into his property. A private entity cannot use the county ditch for the pipelines. So that's gonna be another expense on him to move the pipelines.
So he's still waiting on the county, not the city? Is that what I'm hearing?
That is not.
I have not been included in anything, and I'm the one that's gotta sign off as Commissioner Precinct 2 on this. Now, if Judge Reader has changed it to where Commissioner's Court can override me, they can do it. But it has not been brought before the court, so it cannot have been resolved. So I don't know where or what's going on there.
What statutes govern that?
Sir,
What statutes govern that? Who has to approve and who,
what's the cul-de-sacs and stuff?
all that stuff?
That's the county, subdivision rules and regulations.
Okay, and each county commissioner having to approve that, that's in here?
Yes,
Okay.
So, okay, let me ask something I may.
yes, sir.
It's Monday. Could you get with the judge and arrange a meeting this week? And we can have the water board there, the county commissioners will be there, the judge will be there, we'll have representation from the city there. Ms. Lindsay can to attend, and let's get everybody on the same page.
That'd be fine with me.
Everybody
I'll talk
but
to Judge
Gary is
Moore.
on the same page. I've had meetings with the judge, I speak with the judge on a regular basis.
As do I.
That subdivision requirement has to be met before I can go to the county commissioner court to get a final approval. I have to have every single one of those items completed before I can go back to the court to get approval. This is the last item I need to go back to the court to get the approval.
I just wanna say, water is the new oil. This is a big deal. And it's easy to make the comparison with Diane and Tryon Road, but you can also make the comparison with how much we're looking at selling to North Texas Municipal Water District and others like that. And compare how much, the law firm that drew this up, you know, and a lot of the most powerful influences and parties involved here represent Dallas water interests. And it's really a minor point, but on 8th, there's also a typo as well. It calls the contract a contact.
I'm gonna suggest, please arrange a meeting for us. We'll have all the representatives there. We'll all get on the same page because we're sitting here and you're coming up with comments that are a little bit foreign to me that I didn't understand, that I heard something different on. So let's get everybody in the same road and we get this thing, get everybody in the same room and we get this thing resolved. All the interested parties will be there. Please get back with me on that ASAP and we'll get hold of all of you.
A public meeting.
Public meeting. If the judge so chooses.
I will see him in the morning, 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll see him.
So on 3-2, we're gonna table this.
You're gonna table it.
So I make a motion, we table 3-2.
I second it.
Motion to table, a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Council members, when we get that, the time confirmed, I'd like for as many of you to be there as you can. Hopefully it's a short meeting. 3-3, will be discussion and possible action by the mayor or legal counsel to contact the Morris County judge for the consideration of a waiver or variance for the Morris County subdivision and plat regulation, which references a 30-year minimum agreement for water supply to the subdivision, Serenity Development subdivision. We're still waiting on a comment back from Stan on that. I've had a discussion with him. He was the one that took issue with it. And again, this is, he was concerned that it would leave the city liable. And I'll see if Stan can call in on that meeting as well. That will be the last part of the dynamic to get us all on the same page.
Stan, the
I'm, sir,
attorney, Stan?
yes, because he'll be drawing up the agreement for us.
Did the judge and Stan have a conversation?
They did have a conversation.
No, it was not resolved?
No.
So we're gonna table 3-3. I make a motion to table 3-3.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second? Someone?
I second it.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.